we're actually all part of. And so the Data Science Expo is an effort to really acknowledge all the different kind of opportunities that are out there in data science and the necessity for getting every one of you involved in it, with the different skills and different orientations and different interests that you have. And really, this talk is going to touch on that in a couple of different ways. When I started this talk, I was thinking about approaching it very much sort of course-oriented, but I started realizing that there was a lot more for us to talk about. The place to start is maybe by acknowledging that data science is super confusing. Like when we talk about data science, no two people would define it the same way. No two people think about it the same way. And that makes it an incredibly hard object to think about, and it makes it a hard sort of space to try to fit yourself into if it's not well defined. I don't think I'm going to do a great job of defining it because it is totally undefined, but I want to leave you with two really key takeaways from this talk. The first is some very concrete things that you can be doing right now to get involved. And the second is an appreciation for how data science can be relevant to whatever discipline you are coming out of. So if you're coming out of computer science, there's a fit. If you're coming out of public policy, there's a fit. If you're interested in economics or literature, there is a fit. There is a fit. And I want you to come away with a sense that there really is a fit, and there's a necessity for the contribution that you're going to play. And for you to have some concrete ideas about this next step that you can take, both in terms of classes, but also in terms of extracurricular activity. And I will not lie to you, like a lot of data science, a lot of getting into a data science career is less about the courses you take, and it's more about the activities you do outside of a classroom. But I'll explain that a bit more. I wanted to open by actually sharing a little bit about my data science journey. So this timeline reaches all the way back to when I started as an undergrad at Rice in physics and ancient civilizations, which is not the major that I finished undergrad with. But one of the things that you'll see here is that this journey does not make a heck of a lot of sense. So data science is not a path that you just set yourself on and you can just sort of check boxes as you move through. I started as an undergrad in physics and ancient civilizations. I took a course in immersive virtual reality back in the days when like these systems were not things you put on your face, but like there were whole rooms that you would step into. 2 years later, I realized that I actually really liked computer science, and that was what I actually wanted to be doing, so I switched into that. I had a startup as an undergrad that by 2003 had tanked. So I went to grad school, but that's not mine. I went to grad school. I started grad school in robotics, which is not data science. Discovered that robotics did not speak to me, and I wasn't sort of being able to really get a good projects. I wasn't able to really connect with it. So I switched into really advanced network design, so like peer-to-peer networks, file sharing, these kinds of technologies, which is also not data science. Discovered that that was also not something that I really wanted to do, and ended up switching into bioinformatics, which is data science. It's data science applied to biology and medicine. And so that was what I actually did my PhD in. I finished my PhD. Right before I did that, on a lark, I did this project looking at, I happened to stumble across a data set on terrorist attacks, and did this weekend project where I built a bunch of models of different terrorist organizations and how they acted, classified them, and the CIA became very interested in what I was doing. So before I got my PhD, I was invited to go out to Langley and present to research scientists at the CIA. And then I came here and started my professorship here. And it was actually that experience, so bioinformatics, I was working on cancer genomics, but then once I had started working on this work, I became really interested in social informatics. And social informatics became one of the real focal points of the research and the work that I do. And that started me down a totally different path. So there are so many pivots that I've taken in my career. I started a number of different companies and enterprises, all around data science, but it was by no means a path that I chose undergrad. I didn't know where it was going to end up. And so for those of you who are sort of thinking that, oh, like you're late to the game, or data science is something that you have to get in, and you have to be really focused on, like, that's simply not true. Nobody knows what data science is. You kind of have to figure this out as you go. I'm not sure that I would count myself a success story in data science, but certainly my story is not going to be that different from a lot of other people's who are in data science. And so if you're confused, if you're searching, if you're looking around and trying to figure out sort of where you fit, that is completely natural, and it's a very, very sensible place to be, and it's certainly the place that I have been for many, many years in my own career. So let me just sort of take a step back and talk a little bit about what data science is. So this is actually some work that I've done through the NGO that I run, Charitable Analytics International. So this is the World Food Program, and we're working with the World Food Program, and they run these really remote clinics. And all of their data is captured in these logbooks that end up looking like that. And so the World Food Program has to make decisions about how they're going to distribute food, where they're going to send medical supplies, all this. And they make this information based on all these paper records. But the catch is, these paper records never make it back to the World Food Program. And the reason is because when you have like monsoon rains, when you have military conflict, when you have starvation, the last thing that people are typically thinking about is how to get a sheet of paper back to your office. And so most of this information never makes it back. But they need this information. They need the numbers, they need the information to actually make good decisions. And so part of what we've done, part of this project has been about taking these paper logs, these log sheets, and building a system, a cell phone-based system that allows you to take a picture and extract all that content on the cell phone so that it can be in the way out in the hinterlands of the Congo or Tanzania, and have that digitized and put into a database where World Food Program analysts can actually work with the data. So for the first time, the World Food Program is actually getting regular ingestion of information about what's going on in their clinics. And that's changed everything in terms of how they can actually operate. Why do I bring this up? Well, it's easy to talk about this story, about how we built an AI system that did this digitization and how you can analyze it. But there are a lot of people that have been involved in actually making this data science solution possible. So there's been ongoing discussions with legal, with World Program Legal, about who owns this data. It's crucially important that you protect this. A lot of these people, they're one of the most vulnerable populations in the world. They cannot advocate for themselves. They don't know what data is being collected about them. They're a serious threat to violence. So legal protection for these people is very important. So where does that data go? Who gets to own it? What server should it sit on? IT has had to think at long length about how we actually deploy these systems. How do we make them available so that they run in these kinds of environments? The nutritionists are actually thinking about what we collect, and that's not as easy as you might think, because when you start digitizing, you have restrictions. We came in and we said, you know what, we can digitize anything, that's a number. And they said, oh, well, that changes. It's like, oh, we can't use handwritten notes. We can't use these things. So the nutritionists had to go to work thinking about, well, how are we going to actually create information that we can capture and send in? We've hired a number of people, so HRs had to figure out who the right people are to hire at the World Food Program to support this. We have developers, of course, building the software. Community managers have been absolutely vital. We've shown up to clinics and nobody has been there. Like 0 people showed up to a clinic to do an actual deployment, to show them how to use this, and nobody was there. Part of actually deploying the solution is making sure that the right people are there, understanding the right information, prepared, feeling enthusiastic about it. So community management is a vital part of actually making a data science solution work. So, and then business. So we were funded through, this project was funded through an accelerator program. That accelerator program was not run by data scientists, and yet it funded a bunch of data science projects. It was run by MBAs, it was run by entrepreneurs, it was run by World Food Program managers who had to make decisions about what projects to bring in, how to approach them, how to actually incentivize them, how to run a boot camp. All of these skills rolled into how this solution actually emerged. So the story, really the takeaway that I hope that you have from this is that there are many, many roles that are within the data science community. And so if you're thinking about, like, should I join the data science community, or should I be working in this space? Here's some questions to sort of ask yourself, or I guess these aren't questions. Here are some statements to consider, and all of these would apply to someone who is thinking about data science and who thinks that the data science community is a home where they should be working. I believe people need to make better decisions. Data science is fundamentally about setting up processes to make better decisions using data. So if you think that we should be making better decisions, that is a natural, data science is a natural place for you to be looking. I believe data is a powerful way to learn about the world. Maybe it's not about decision making per se, maybe you want to learn about decision making processes. You want to learn about these phenomena that are going on. Data is very powerful there. I believe people aren't using data correctly. Maybe your concern is actually not so much that we're doing a great job with decision making or we're doing a great job making it more available. Maybe your concern is actually with the substrate, these atomic elements that capture so much information about ourselves. Well, those are being picked up and used. Those are the objects that data scientists and data managers are regularly picking up and employing. We need to make sure that we use them responsibly. People shouldn't own their data. Similar topic. I think governments shouldn't use people's data. We need policy there. I think we need laws around what Facebook can do with data that they collect. We need corporate policy. We need government policy. I think it's spooky how Amazon makes its recommendations. Is it spooky because you don't like the way they're using data? Is it spooky because Alexa pipes up in the middle of dinner and starts talking to you? Is it a UX problem? Is it a user experience problem? Is it an engineering problem? Is it a legal problem? There's so many facets to sort of answering these questions, and all of these have to be considered. So that is a bit about why data science is this multifaceted object that we all have a responsibility and a role to play. The other thing that I want to underscore, and you'll hear this I think in a number of talks over the day, is nobody's an expert in data science. Like, we talk a big game, but data science is actively being invented, and we're all just on this treadmill trying to sort of keep up and figure out how data science works and what it is. It's being reinvented every day. So there are lots of skills to learn, but there's nobody who can claim to be an expert in data science. We're all simply on this journey, and we're sort of that we're crafting ourselves. But you may not be an expert, I may not be an expert, we can certainly develop expertise. And the question is, how do we do that? And that's really what this talk, what I want to bring this talk around to, which is how do we go from entering undergrad, being interested in this, to feeling as though we really have crafted ourselves a place in the data science community. And there's really three parts, and I want to walk through these three different parts. There is learning skills, like courses or books or online programs. There's applying skills, which is actually using the things that you've learned. And then there's networking. And all of these are incredibly important. I think that learning skills actually is too overemphasized. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about is applying skills, because I think it's the hardest piece to actually dig into. But I'll give you some strategies for it. So learning skills, and this is a cyclical process. So like we are all in this process. I am in this process. Like the professors in computer science are in this process. The management school people who do data science are in this process. The CEO of Google is in this process. Like, we're all in this loop. We're just constantly like learning a bit more, trying to apply it in new ways, and then connecting with the community, which is both an engine for impact, and it's also an engine for figuring out resources and direction. All right, so a bit about learning skills. So first off, not everybody needs to be a technical data scientist. If you're going to go into law, you don't need to know how to build a compute server. If you're going to be doing public policy around data science, you don't need to be able to run a linear regression. But knowing a bit about data science tools is really valuable. And it is worth investing your time in, because it is some of the language that data science uses. When we talk about data, there is language for talking about data. And a lot of that comes from the technical data science community. So it is worth learning those things. And also it can't hurt. Like, it might hurt learning it. But it's not gonna hurt you in the long run to actually know about it. And there are a number of courses here at McGill that can sort of get you into that without requiring you to do this massive deep dive, multi-semester deep dive into it. So Fundamentals of Data Science is a really nice, not for majors course that covers everything from ingestion of data to visualization to some of the communication skills that go along with talking about data science. Computers in Society, which I teach, touches on some of these topics. Programming is actual like software development, so that's going to be more oriented around algorithms and programming. Introductory Statistics would be another national one. So any of these are going to give you a bit of a foundation in just talking and thinking about data. So that when you are interacting with a data scientist who's actually building software or a problem, you'll just feel more comfortable with the terms that are being used, with the kinds of problems that they're surfacing. DataCamp is another really nice tool. So if you're not going to take a course, you can use DataCamp, which is an online web-based system that'll basically allow you to learn the basics of Python or R, and they have data already there. They give you little puzzles to work through. It'll also give you some familiarity with this. So to me, the bar for this is not high. You shouldn't be thinking, I need to spend semesters figuring this out. But several hours a day, several hours a week for a semester is worth it, because it'll give you a firm foundation. And then, I mean, more broadly, learn the skills that move you towards your end goal. So if you're thinking you want to work in public policy around data science, find courses that are going to approach that. And there are very few courses right now at McGill or anywhere that are actually targeting data science. So there is a need to be a bit creative with the kinds of courses that we take. But you know, that's the journey that we're all on. And so sometimes you may have to squint your eyes a little bit at the courses that you're enrolling in. Like it may not be law and data, it may be law and privacy, but there are absolute connections there. So you really have to be thinking about how to kind of craft these things and how to approach them from that angle. Here's just very quickly, here's a handful of undergraduate courses that having these sort of going through and looking at what's available around McGill, these are ones that are would give you a square foundation in data science in some way. And so these are a little bit more technical, but because they're offered by other departments, they're going to provide other lenses into things. And actually this list and a longer list is available at the Cascades table outside. So if you want to just go pick one of those up, you can do that. But you can see, like, you don't have to go to math or you don't have to go to computer science to take these courses. They're available across the university. So that's learning skills, and it's essential. You have to learn the skills. It's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to take time. That's the reality of learning anything. Courses are great because they structure your time, but these online courses, they're really good. Udemy, massively online courses like these are also good places to go to get the skill learning. Applying skills. So this is actually where I want to spend more time, because I think this is where people often get caught. And that is, it's not enough to learn. So something that I've seen happen time and time again at the organizations I run with my research lab is individuals and students will have taken some courses and then they'll show up and they'll say, I want to get started, I want to start doing research in data science, I want to join the company and start doing this work. And it's just too early. It's too early for them to jump into a full-fledged research project. It's too early for them to become a full-on data science developer. And that can feel like a real blow, because when you want to make that leap, like how else is one to make the leap? In a lot of other areas, if you're a chemist, like the leap is you take a bunch of chemistry courses and then you go out and you get hired as some kind of chemist and then you do that work. In data science, it is a bit different. And it's just something to embrace about sort of the state of the culture and the state of the field. There's not enough formal training courses out there. And so that means that we are more responsible, as we start to develop our skills, we're more responsible for figuring out how to actually do that ourselves. And the way to do that is by trying to apply your skills. But there are many things you can do before you get to jobs or internships. And that is for me the real thing to take away from this, which is personal projects and volunteering are incredibly valuable experiences that if you're interested in getting into data science, that should be your first stop. You learn skills and then you start personal projects. And I'm going to give you some examples of personal projects. So, for example, if you are interested in data science and public policy or policy in general, Personal projects would be policy design projects, writing white papers or blogs, anything that makes you basically sit down with a problem. Imagine a problem that some company is going to have or the government is going to have. Just go and tackle it. It's going to be amateurish, absolutely. Like that's why it's a personal project. But the point is that you're going through the exercise of actually doing that work. And so, some personal project ideas. Audit a social media company's use of data. You don't need a job to do that. You don't need a company to do that. Like when Pew Research comes out and says that they've looked at Facebook's data usage policies, like they didn't get to go inside Facebook. They didn't have any resources except just some time and somebody reading over the policy to actually write something up. You could do that. You could do that. If you're interested in public policy, just prepare it. And what is that going to turn into? Well, you can tweet it, you can blog about it, you can share it with professors, you can share it with colleagues, it could become a resume entry. When I'm evaluating the resumes of people who apply for the different positions that I have open, often I'm looking for what they did, not what they took. Because what they did tells me a lot more about what their skills are and what their interests are. Assess the impact of a local NGO. Montreal has tons of NGOs. I mean, lots and lots of companies, lots and lots of organizations trying to do good with data. Just go assess what they're doing. Again, you don't need the permission to do it. Start a blog about data ownership issues, or just blog about articles about data ownership issues. And just get involved. Do something that's going to get you engaged and is going to make you regularly engage with this kind of content. If you're more interested on getting involved in data science from a technical side, so personal projects could be analyzing the topics covered by your favorite website. So if you read, BBC or Al Jazeera, like what are the topics they cover? You could guess, but no, go write an actual script that extracts the topics, extracts the tags, extracts the topics, and pulls it down and gives you an actual visualization of it. Make yourself do that. That is a personal project. That's something you can put on a resume. That's something you can show to people. That's something you can post. The web is full of visualizations that were made by people in their spare time, on the weekend, curious about something. And you can do that too. Analyze the send-receive patterns of your email inbox. This may not be something you want to share, but it's always interesting. Who's the person who emails you most? Who do you email most? What are the most frequent openers that you use in your emails? You could do that manually, you can go through, or write a script to actually analyze your emails. It's very doable. It's challenging to actually get your emails in a form that allows you to analyze them, and writing those programs are not going to be trivial. So again, it's an exercise in data science. It's a personal project. Download your data set and uncover some trends. If you're interested in the personal transportation revolution, download Bixby information from the Montreal Smart City website. A lot of information is available about this. And then if you're really interested in development as opposed to analytics, you can actually go into open source projects and start working. You can fix bugs in Python libraries, you can write R libraries. The world is out there and it's waiting for these things, and so you can just contribute to them. And that is a huge way to start. It's a way to actually cut your teeth on a lot of these things. If you're more coming from a domain expertise, so this is like, in my World Food Program example, that was like the nutritionists. Like those are the domain experts, the people who really know about how we're supposed to be applying the data. Often domain experts are often called to fit between full-blown technical data scientists and implementation, and that means that they're having to do analysis themselves. So some of the suggestions here would not be that different from what I would suggest for people looking to get into technical data science streams. Analyze content on your website. You're going to have to scrape data. You're going to have to work with that data. Download a data set. Just start with something simple. Start with economic indicators. Do some analysis on that on Excel. See if you can take that analysis and put it into something in Python or in R. Take steps and just kind of challenge yourself with these different things that you can do. And then finally, network. Networking is incredibly valuable because you do not want to go on this journey alone. The data science community is highly interconnected and is very, very strongly based around an exchange of ideas. So this is another place. If you are working on a personal project around analytics, I can guarantee that there's a meetup where you'll be able to go and share some of that information that you learned. Share some of those scripts. Try to get people to help you with the things that you're working on. Go and meet people, exchange ideas. You'll find that it's both energizing, it'll help you know that there's other people out there who are on this journey, and it'll also really help you dig into this because you're guaranteed to show up and somebody's going to mention something. You'll say, yeah, I did this analysis of the website. Boy, was it a pain to download all that web content. I set up, I used Unix curl. And the person will say, oh my gosh, I did that the other day and Selenium was definitely the way to go. And it's like, oh, Selenium, never heard about that. Let me go take a look. And so you're going to surface all different kinds of things. And that'll happen on a policy level too. You'll go in, you'll talk about this particular angle that you took on a policy analysis, and somebody is going to offer a different perspective. Somebody will say, oh, well, have you read the terms of service of 3 tags? Because they took a totally different angle on this. You'll say, oh, okay, well, hadn't been aware of that before. And so this exchange of ideas, this networking is very valuable. And then, of course, networking is going to be very valuable when you look to transition into a program. When you actually are looking for internships or jobs. But if you network from the beginning, you'll have all this credibility, you'll have all these connections to draw on. So just to close, I just had a couple sort of frequently asked questions that I often get. And I just wanted to address them really quickly. One is, I often hear, I can't program, can I have a career in data science? The answer to that is yes. If you want to go on the tech side, you do need to learn how to program, but anybody can learn how to program. If you want to focus on something that is not on the tech side of data science, you absolutely can do that without learning how to program. I would recommend getting a little familiarity, as I said, but you can totally get into policy law or even like visual analysis or UX design without touching code. So it's absolutely possible. I often have people ask about whether online courses and degrees in data science are good. And this is a real mixed bag. So the answer is maybe, or maybe the answer is yes and no. Yes, they are good for learning skills. But in my experience, they are not good for credibility. The degrees and those courses do not on a resume translate into a strong indicator of skill. That doesn't mean that you didn't get the skill. It just means that when I'm looking at a resume and I see online courses, it gives me sort of zero information because I don't know what those courses involved. I don't know how the person took them. I know too little about them. So they're good for using for learning skills, but don't rest on them as an indicator of your experience. If you're going to do online courses or an online degree, you need to double down on applying your skills in a way that allows you to demonstrate that you can do things. And so you should be thinking of those not as something on your resume, but think of those as just something that's giving you the boost to work on the things that you can then put in your resume, that you can then talk to people about. So go for it, but really double down on projects, whether they're personal or volunteering or internships. So another one is, and this gets to be like sort of getting stuck. So I had this idea, I had this project idea, but I'm not sure if it's ... Doesn't matter. Like if it involves data and does not hurt people, do it. Just go do it. Like whatever the idea is in your head, if it is something that you're saying, that would be kind of interesting. I'd like to spend a couple hours like figuring that out. As long as it's not injuring somebody or like releasing somebody else's personal data, do it. Because the thing that's the thing that holds people back is not choosing the wrong project. It is not choosing a project to work on. So whatever it is that you're interested in, whether it's sports or knitting or public speaking or visualizations or like market analysis, turn it into a data exercise and just do the project. It's going to be awkward, it's going to be weird as you're working on it, it's not going to turn out the way that you want, but that is not the point. Like the point is, get some experience and you'll find that the next idea you have, you'll be able to jump on that much more easily. And the next idea, and as you start bringing that to other people and getting feedback and ideas, you'll find that the community will really draw you in. All right, so for those of you who are either just joining us or waking up, the TLDR is start reading and learning. develop the skills, but most importantly, just start doing something. Get a project that you're working. And is it going to come out of your personal time? Yes. But hopefully it's enjoyable. Because if this is a career path or this is a place that you want to end up, I hope that it's something that speaks to you and makes you want to actually spend time on it. Pick a project, work on it. I'll be around all day, so if you want to talk about projects or project ideas, I'll be available. And then finally, we have a wonderful speaker, Erica, at 11:30, who's actually talking more about transitioning from undergrad and graduate school into data science. So like what that means, why it's, how to read job offers, what your resume looks like all of these different details that can sometimes get in the way. So I would highly encourage you to go to this. Not necessarily because you're there yet, but because it's good to sort of get an understanding of the arc that you're all on. All right, with that, I'll stop, and maybe I will have some time for questions. But thank you very much for your time and attention, and I wish you the best of luck with your games.
Hi, thank you very much. This was very insightful. I do understand the importance of having the personal projects, and I have a few on the side myself. But I have a hard time understanding how to showcase these to potential employers, or do you just stick it on your GitHub and be like, look at what I did? Or is it more in the context of networking, as you were saying earlier?
So GitHub is the easiest thing to do. So if we're talking technical projects, so GitHub is a place where you can put software code that you write. So GitHub would be a natural place to put it. You just link under your resume. I mean, just linking a GitHub account that's active already puts a resume already puts it at a certain level of visibility. You can also feature it in your resume itself. You're just personal projects. At least for me, and I think I speak for a lot of people who are at management levels in data science we're evaluating, we're often looking for people who are interested enough in data science that they do something with it. And so putting it on your resume is actually a really good differentiator. If I'm looking at somebody and they, the top thing you want is work experience. But if you don't have that yet, and it's very understandable if you're just coming out of university, the next best thing is listing out a couple of projects that catch my attention. I say, oh, well, that one wasn't easy. That asks an interesting question. That would have taken a lot of time. That's what you want your resume to tell me. That's what you want those projects to tell me. And then the other thing is, it's not just about showcasing, it's also about sharing. So don't underestimate the network effect. If you show up, if somebody in there is involved in choosing resumes. So if they are standing there and you walk up and you start talking to them and then you say, oh yeah, I was working on this project over the weekend where I was analyzing this. Oh, tell me more. How did you do that? Oh, well, I did this and this. Your resume already just got in. It just got into the pool where somebody's going to look at it. So that's the kind of interactions you're looking to create using those projects.
All right, thank you very much.
So I have a question about data science master, because I know that some of the grad school in Canada, they're starting to have data science master in mathematics and statistics department. So regarding that, what do you think about it compared to just doing your own project by yourself, or maybe going for a master and try to get help from the professors on your project?
Well, going for a graduate degree in data science, if it's a credible degree program, and you have the means and the time, absolutely. I think that would be very high value. A lot of employers right now are looking, again, talking technical, a lot of employers are looking to hire people sort of at the master's level or beyond for actual data science positions. I know less about how it looks in the social sciences and humanities, but as employers struggle with trying to figure out how to think about these jobs, I think that kind of degree from a known, reputable program is going to be high value. I know, for instance, the business school now has an analytics program. That not only is going to signal the right interests, it's also going to provide you with skills that have sort of been thought through. So I wouldn't say don't do the projects, but if that's available to you, I would say to go for it.
Thank you so much.
Hi. You had mentioned the data camp during your presentation. Would you mind talking a little bit more about it?
Sure. So Data Camp is it's a training platform that it's a little unusual. So the way it looks is it basically gives you programming tasks or data analysis tasks on one side, and then but down the middle of the page it actually gives you an open text block where you can type code. And then what you can do is you can run that code and it'll tell you what's going on, basically like whether you solve it. So it'll do something like load this data set and compute the average height of the people in the data set. And so then you would go into the right and you would like write that code out. And if you mess something up, it'll actually come and it'll give you some feedback. It'll say, oh, it looks like you multiplied rather than added. Or so it's crafted in such a way that it can kind of understand the mistakes that you're making in your code much more effectively than, for example, if you were just sitting there in a text editor writing code and then the computer's just rejecting your programs all the time. So, and then what it does is, once you finish that one, you succeed, and then it moves you on to the next task, and the next task, and the next task. And so it's designed to basically allow you to build up this skill set step by step by step, and it introduces you to the core programming language features, and it introduces you to libraries that you can use to do fancier things. And then there's modules for all different kinds of things. So there's modules for how to connect to databases, there's modules for how to create visualizations, there's modules for data scraping, there's modules for data little. So you can sort of pick and choose what you do. But to start out with, you're kind of following one branch of one curriculum for a little while, and then it branches out and you can do a bunch of different things. So it's super fun. Like, I even like doing it just because it's so gratifying. It's like it's a gamification of the whole thing. You're like sitting there, you're like, yes, I'm solving these problems, and then it runs, and then it tells you what the problem is, and then you fix it, and then you go on to the next task. It's really well designed. And Data Camp isn't the only one. There's a couple others that are in there. So all of them are totally worth it.
Anyone else have any more questions?
All right, well, I'll be around all day, so if you do have questions, I would be more than happy to hear and discuss.
Thank you so much, Derek.